the OldPreMeds podcast, session number 69. You're a non-traditional student entering the medical field on your terms. You may have had some hiccups along the way, but now you're ready to change course and go back and serve others as a physician. This podcast is here to help answer your questions and help educate you on your non-traditional journey to becoming a physician. Welcome to the OldPreMeds podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray. I'm the host here at this podcast, as well as the MCAT podcast, the Premed Years, Specialty Stories, and a new podcast coming soon that doesn't really affect you as an old pre-med, but it may in the future. We're going to be covering the USMLE Step 1 and COMLEX Level 1, the first part of the boards that you take as a medical student. That podcast will be coming in a couple weeks. Before I jump into today's episode, I want to highlight the Premed Years podcast that came out today, session 229. I thought about playing that podcast specifically here on the Old Premeds and not doing a question for today, but thought I'd do a question anyway. And the question today actually kind of relates a little bit to the Premed Years episode 229. In the episode 229, which you can listen to at medicalschoolhq.net/229, I spoke with a 54-year-old medical student. She was 53 when she reapplied to medical school. She was a former nurse turned nurse practitioner turned nurse educator and had a very successful career, but had always wanted to be a physician. And for reasons we didn't really get into in the episode, she decided to go into nursing. And through the encouragement of her kids, she actually went back and decided to make the leap. And you hear her story and how she had to take the MCAT 5 times, and as I said, had to reapply to medical school, but was finally successful and is now a medical student. So go check that out, medicalschoolhq.net/229. In today's episode here on the Old Premeds podcast, the reason I said it's somewhat related is that our poster today, and remember, we take questions directly from the oldpremeds.org forms, which you can find at oldpremeds.org. And our question today comes from a student who isn't really sure he's interested in medicine. And the poster's name is Kyle on here, the username, so I'm going to say him to make it easier for me to refer to Kyle. So Kyle isn't sure. And in our Premed Years episode, Renee was sure. At 53 years old, she knew, and even before that, obviously, having to start the process and having taken the MCAT 5 times, so several years, she knew that medicine was right for her. So let's talk about Kyle here and read his question. So Kyle, the topic of the title of his post is, I really need some objectivity right now. He says, up and down academic trend, maybe 3.0 science GPA, maybe a 3.1, graduated with an allied health degree, not strong GPA throughout program, finally picked it up final semester of my degree. Prereqs General Biology 1, 3.7 after retake, General Biology 2, 3.0, post-bacc, informal, very slow pace right now, Chem 1, retake 4.0, Genetics 4.0, Chem 2 currently taking. So it's interesting, it's not a lot of prereqs there. So he says, so here's the deal. I'm just not sure I really want to be a physician. There's a lot that goes into this thinking, but fundamentally, I'm not sure I want to do what a doctor does. I've done the volunteering, shadowing, etc. I like the science side of it and not really dealing with treating, caring for people. I've gone from pre-nursing, pre-pharm to pre-med throughout my academic career and currently in a health profession that is none of those, but I enjoy my job. Who else out there is struggling with this doubt? But it's not just doubt in my abilities, work ethic, time to do this while working full-time, but like I said, fundamentally, I don't think I want that role like I once did. If someone was there before, what brought you back to pursue medicine? You hear the cliche that if you can see yourself doing something other than being a doctor, then don't become a doctor. This has been an ongoing multi-year, multi-season fight, and I just don't know if I have what it takes, nor if I really want this. All right, so that is what Kyle posted. And the easy answer, the short answer is, Kyle, go find something else to do. It really is as simple as that. The role of a physician is so ingrained in patient care. And when you say that you just aren't sure you want to do what a doctor does, and that you really don't like dealing with treating or caring for people, that right there tells me that you shouldn't be a doctor. And you know what? That's okay. I talk about it, not necessarily here on this podcast, but on the Premed years all the time. It is great to realize that you don't want to be a doctor, because it's a long process. It's a hard process. It's an expensive process. And the other end is there's a lot of question on whether or not it's really worth it still. A lot of people, a lot of physicians don't like being a doctor anymore. And so for you to find this out now, great. Go find something else that you love to do. It doesn't even have to be in healthcare. You've talked about going from pre-pharm to pre-nursing to pre-med. Get out of medicine altogether and go find something else that you love. So if you are listening to this and you are struggling with similar things as Kyle is, I highly recommend you go and listen to session 29 of the Old Premeds podcast. And I read a post from somebody that wrote a farewell letter to medicine, or to being a pre-med. It's a great, great episode and a great post from somebody who realized that it's just not what they wanted anymore. And that's okay. So Kyle, congratulations for figuring this out. Go enjoy whatever it is that you are meant to do. Go find it. I hope this was helpful for you. If you're struggling with similar questions like Kyle is, go check out everything that we have to offer here at the Old Premeds, as well as the Premed Years podcast. And don't forget to check us out next week here at the Old Premeds podcast. But before I let you go, again, I wanted to remind you, medicalschoolhq.net/229. Go hear Renee's story. And also, I'd love to hear a rating and review from you in iTunes. We have a couple that I want to read here. We have one from Jacob1821 that says, informative and motivating content. I've been listening to this podcast and the Premed Years for a couple months now, and both have been extremely helpful. Not only does it provide amazing advice, but it also provides encouragement for those going through typical pre-med obstacles. And he has some other things to say. Thank you, Jacob1821, for that. We have another one here from R. Bryant saying, essential information. If you are a non-traditional student looking at becoming a physician, you need this podcast. Being a non-traditional student comes with many challenges. Dr. Gray understands these challenges and gives us insight on ways to overcome them. Awesome. Thank you for that review. You can leave us a rating and review in iTunes. I would love it. Thank you very much. Have a great week. We'll see you next time here at the Old Premeds podcast.